Thank you. Thank you. All right. All right, Hope. It's 6 o'clock.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Good evening and welcome to the City of Lincoln's regular meeting of the City Council. Tonight's meeting will be televised and available on cable channel 18 and via Zoom. This evening's invocation will be given by Fred Benzel of Grace Life Church. Once the invocation has concluded, Mayor Andreatta will call the meeting to order.
Thankful for our community tonight as well, for Lincoln, and we thank you for those of us that have been here long-term and those perhaps short-term. But Father, may your hand of strength be upon us. We do pray for our community. We thank you for our police department, our fire department. Lord, protect them as they protect us. We thank you for our schools, our faculty, Lord, our students. We pray your hand upon them for a safe school year. Father, I pray for this council and for those in our leadership. May you give them wisdom for the days ahead, Father, that our community might shine for you. And so we just give you the praise for it. We thank you for it in Jesus' name. Amen.
Thank you, Pastor. Really appreciate that. All right, everyone, welcome to the City of Lincoln 2025 regular meeting. City Council, Lincoln Redevelopment Successor Agency, Lincoln Public Financing Authority. It's October 14th, and I know that because today is my birthday. Oh.
Happy birthday.
I said that just so you could say happy birthday. So it is 6:03. I'll call the meeting to order. Hope, can we have the roll call, please?
Yes, Councilmember Reedy.
Here.
Councilmember Pearl.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Brown.
Here.
Councilmember Eklund.
Here.
Mayor Andreatta.
Here, thank you. Tori, would you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. Great, thank you for that. Item number 4, agenda modifications. Is there any item on the agenda that the council would like to change or staff moving anything around? Nope, okay, good. All right, we have one presentation this evening, Police Department Staffing and Organizational Assessment presented by AP Triton. And Chief, are you gonna start us out or are we gonna just go straight to? Okay, all right, welcome. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me tonight. Let me get this pulled up. All right, I think we're there. Thank you. My name is Mark Fetzer. I am a police consultant with AP Triton and had the honor to work on the organizational assessment or analysis and staffing assessment for Lincoln Police Department. Tonight, I have a high-level overview of the assessment that was completed, a pretty comprehensive assessment, and just want to say first a thank you to everyone at the police department and the city who helped us out. It's a lot of material we needed to gather and to gain this, so I appreciate that. Really quick on our purpose and approach of a staffing assessment and organizational analysis is first and foremost to understand where the agency is currently at, how effectively resources are being utilized, and then also how to adapt for future growth. It's really a proactive or a forward-thinking approach to preparation instead of being reactive, with the goal of keeping the police department and the city prepared for community growth when it comes to emergency services, very critical component. Before I get going too far, just a note on context and timing. These analyses take a long time, and the findings reflect really a snapshot in time. As I get further into the presentation, please understand we started this summer of last year. And so the snapshot in time is really from summer of last year until we were on site, I believe, January of this year. So kind of a snapshot in time at that area. And with that, a lot of the components, a lot of the findings, a lot of the recommendations that we've made we realize have probably, some have already been started, or maybe in the progress or be complete. And that's not uncommon in, forward thinking and engaged departments for us to see that. The process was, again, a long process, but really, to summarize it, the AP team, which consisted of financial analysts, law enforcement, subject matter experts, and data analysts on the backside, we collected a abundance of qualitative and quantitative data, looked in it, and from there, we're able to determine performance and also demand for service on the city police department. From that, we're able to identify growth trends, and again, those service demands on the agency to make future recommendations for what the city may need to keep up with that. Briefly, nothing new to anyone here. The description of the community served, with a population of about 52,000, a little bit over, and around 20 square miles. The police station operates out of one main police station, no substations, and are handling about 10,000 community-generated calls for service per year on average. I am mentioning at this point only community-generated calls for service as opposed to proactive law enforcement calls or handling that we often see with law enforcement. That's your traffic stop. This is solely community-generated calls for service when a citizen calls for police assistance. As far as the department goes, 30 sworn officers, that's 3 command level officers, the chief, captain, and lieutenant, 5 sergeants, 4 corporals, 2 detectives, 2 school resource officers, 2 specialized resource team members, 11 patrol officers, and 1 motor. And then on top of that, and I never want to forget, our non-sworn professional staff who are also very much a part of the organization and keep much of it running. Services provided by your law enforcement are, of course, 24/7 patrol services, full 911 dispatch and emergency call center, criminal investigations, school resource officer, the specialized resource team, which really looks at unhoused support, traffic enforcement and safety, and again, and all the duties handled by the non-sworn professional staff, which also serve the public in terms of records and handling walk-ins at the police department. A quick overview of our study area. Again, this is very high level. The report that was produced by AP Triton, each of these areas goes into great detail. So if you have questions, please let me know. We'll have a time at the end. But just a quick overview of the study area of the city broken down by police beat. You see 4 different beats within the organization, which we do some analyzation on later on. Looking at population density is, of course, important for when we look at also calls for service and deployment, officer deployment. As a financial overview of the police department, we know the police are funded mainly by the general fund with property and sales tax. A while back, there was a goal of reaching 0.85 officers per 1,000 residents. Now, where the police department stands at that right now would be significantly behind that number. However, that is one way of looking at a staffing analysis. We take a different look at AP Triton by looking at the demand for service and allocated time and unallocated time, a slightly different number than the 0.85. However, you were to go with the 0.85 per 1,000 residents, you would be about 50% behind on officers. The capital improvement plan funds technology, facilities, and vehicles. One caution there is, oftentimes these are areas that can get suspended on when funds become tight, which can then delays can become very costly. When we, are all of a sudden backed up, you take, for instance, vehicles, very much an officer and citizen safety component of law enforcement. If we, are having unsafe vehicles and then all of a sudden we need to replace a lot at once, we can have high expenses there. And then with the Village 5 annexation, suspected at around 20,000 residents, that's going to require about $2.5 million in new police staffing costs if you maintain with the 0.85 officers per 1,000 residents. As far as the police station overview, they're again operating out of a single facility, which we understand to be donated and repurposed in the police department. Is very nice and it's been well kept. I was in there yesterday. Very nice office, but does have growth restrictions for the future needs of the police department. As the police department grows, there's definitely going to be, they're going to outgrow that, not just for personnel, but you talk evidence, vehicles, impound capacity and such. As far as vehicles go and fleet, it's a big area we look at. As I said, we look at fleet as very much a citizen and officer safety component. Of the patrol frontline vehicles, which you have at the time 25 vehicles, the conditions were all ranked on each vehicle in service, and they range from excellent to poor, and at the time 12 vehicles recommended for replacement at the time. They're varying years of vehicles, which is good. One recommendation I would make in terms of purchasing vehicles and having vehicles is that those are scheduled out, so you're not purchasing all at once. That can hedge against risk in terms of law enforcement vehicles. All too often we see, if you have issues with a recall of a vehicle, having that spread out over time, varying years of vehicles can help with that. Your traffic motorcycles, all listed in excellent condition, and then non-patrol vehicles at the time, there were 9. Again, varying condition with 3 recommended for replacement. That's high-level overview of the police department and what we looked at. The next section I'll talk about is some of the service demand and staffing performance that AP examined. As I mentioned before, we're talking community-generated calls for service. When we do the staffing allocation that I spoke about later, or that I'll speak about in a little bit, there is a component built into that for unallocated time, which is more proactive time, if you will, by officers. But this is your top 15 community-generated calls for service from the years 2019 through 2023. That was the 5-year data set that we looked at. Of note on here is burglar alarms, which make up 10% of all community-generated calls for service. Now, this would warrant, and there will be a recommendation made later on at the end of the presentation, this would warrant a more in-depth look at what is driving that high volume of burglar alarms and that demand on law enforcement. My guess is that there weren't 4,300 burglaries in the city, I hope.
Can I ask a quick question about that? Is there a data breakdown? I know I don't see it there, but for the burglar alarms, is there documentation that shows what was a false alarm, what was just an accident, or what was actually something warranted?
Not in our study, because our
Okay.
study came from CAD data,
Okay.
which is coming out of dispatch. That would, and that's what I mean, that would require looking
More,
at this, a little bit more in-depth examination on that, and then
I was just
looking at
curious.
actual numbers of burglaries in your report management system. Welfare checks also make a pretty high percentage. That's not uncommon in that area to see a high percentage of welfare checks. We broke down calls for service by a lot of different ways. We're looking for different trends, different patterns. Here, and really across the board, we didn't see anything abnormal outside of what we normally see in most organizations. Here, we're looking at all those community-generated calls for service by month, which, while it looks like, the line in the center makes it look kind of downward, really, statistically speaking, it is kind of stable, which means a really stable amount of calls for service. There's peaks and, seasonal peaks and valleys, if you will, but overall, pretty stable by month. Looking at it on a map, again, this is a 5-year data set, so we see a lot of, it's obviously around all of our populated areas. So nothing we wouldn't expect in that realm. Looking at the distribution of traffic calls, again, the same thing. We see them around our most populated areas. This is going to include not only traffic accidents, but also traffic stops made by the traffic division. So that is a proactive element within this map. And distribution of SRO calls. Now, you would think the SRO calls would all be centralized around the schools, and they are. However, their labeling, we obtain this data by looking at CAD data and what's labeled by either the officer requesting a code or dispatch putting a code in. So here we see a lot of SRO-related calls, probably with juveniles. It may also be due to, it may have originated from the school and they go somewhere else. But again, another area that I would look into on patrol handling SRO-related calls outside the area. It may be advantageous to have maybe another SRO to help with that.
Those are all e-bike calls. Kidding. Just kidding.
Also, the distribution of the SRT calls. Now, this is a much smaller data set. When we looked at your specialized response team, there was only 6 months of data we had because it was a fairly new unit. So in the report, you'll see the specialized response team and more of an analysis around that, but just please understand the limited data set. So that would require further examination as more data becomes available. And then also the distribution of casino-related calls. This is an indicator through the CAD system that officers can attach that this had something to do, somehow originated with a casino. Oftentimes you're going to see maybe alcohol-related calls, DUIs, something like that. Good to pay attention to in terms of understanding the bleed over from the casino, understanding what that impact is on law enforcement here in town, even though the casino is out of town. Community-generated calls for service by day. Again, not uncommon to see Friday and Saturday the highest. I will say this is relatively evenly distributed for what we normally see. A lot of areas may have a much higher spike on the weekends. This makes it really nice in determining deployment of officers, of your resources out in the field, having that more evenly distributed. By hour, community-generated calls for service by hour. Again, this is very typical of the midday, kind of also around that time school gets out, afternoon, start seeing crashes go up, and other calls for service around that midday time, and of course your low and nighttime, early morning hours. And then looking at community-generated calls for service by day and time. Again, this helps with deployment. We look at multiple areas in a staffing analysis. The big part we look at is how many officers are needed. Officers, agencies, then it takes a lot more inside knowledge to look at when do we deploy the officers that we need to handle these calls. You know, it may not be an even distribution. You don't just have the same amount of officers necessarily on every shift. You're going to have more in an afternoon, as we just saw. These heat maps help to identify those times of days when it's advantageous to have more officers out. We also looked at the response by beat. So the city is broken down currently into 4 beats. Beat 5 was on our maps, but is for future consideration, and we'd have no data for beat 5. But looking at the primary 4 beats and response times. Now there's 3 priorities of calls: priority 1, priority 2, priority 3, with priority 1 being your more critical calls. So when we look at response times by beat, how long it takes for the average response time over this data set to respond to these areas. This is for, around 5 minutes is we often see. So this is not an uncommon. I'd say it's an acceptable response time. Of course, there's always room for improvement, but we also need to keep officers safe in responding as well. And there may be other geographical boundaries or issues that create a slower response times in certain areas, which can always be looked at.
Question, is the
Yes.
response time starting for when the officer receives the call out?
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Yes, sir. So when they get on scene.
till they get on scene, okay.
We also looked at it for priority 2, again, very similar to priority 1, and also priority 3 calls. We did see and you'll see in the recommendations, we noticed the data showed a slightly lower. Here, we're looking at to around 2 minutes. We had no priority 3 calls in beat 1, but a slower or a faster response time, which is kind of inverted from what we normally see. And one of our recommendations is to look into that further and see why we have a bit of an inverted response time on there, where normally, again, we would see priority 1s as a faster response.
I'm sorry, real
Yes.
quick.
Yep,
I might have missed it. Did you specify what's a priority 1, 2, or 3?
In the report, it is, I believe, we did
Okay.
specify the different priorities. Yes. The median call handling time by priority, again, priority 1, we see as a higher amount of median call handling. So this is time from on scene to when an officer clears, average amount of time, almost 19 minutes for priority 1. Again, not uncommon to see that, as priority 1s typically tend to be more complex incidents than lower level calls for service. So again, this is all very, very normal in what we see. So we take all of this data and looking at, that helps with deployment, but take it all and we look at populations, we look at historic population and population forecast to start identifying what do we need officer-wise. And here, this chart, we see the population from 2013 projected out through 2033. You have the main forecast in the center dotted line with an upper and lower bounds on either end. I think ideally looking at the upper bounds always, so you're not, you're not caught. Worst case scenario, if you will, and having the right amount of resources for that when you can look at the upper bounds. But each of these next 3 slides will show both the upper and lower bounds for however you want to look at that. So this is population right now currently at, around a little over 52,000, projected in 2033, about 68,000. Looking at community-generated calls and how the population is associated to community-generated calls for service. Again, around that 10,000 mark, averaged out per year, where we currently are with the population growth, looking at anywhere from that 10,252 up to about 12,500 into 2033. And what is that demand of law enforcement? Well, when we take a look at the officer staffing levels currently and the demand, a couple areas we look at, of course, the current demand for service, the community-generated calls for service. We look at what we call administrative time. This is training time, this is sick time. These are all the times an officer's not working on the street. And then we look at what we call unallocated time. This is time officers have to do their own proactive policing, whether that's traffic stops or patrolling neighborhoods. And a kind of an industry standard is around 40% on unallocated time for officers to be out there actually, in communities, making those traffic stops or whatever other proactive measures are in place based on the agency's needs and the city's needs. For that, right around 30 officers Actually, it's right around, for the patrol side, around 10 officers or 11 officers, right where you're at, is what we see now. But taking that and moving that forward, you would need a higher number of officers, between 32 and 39, for the projected growth of the city over the next 8 years. Any questions on that before I move on? Another element that AP Triton did, completed for this study was a community survey. The community survey was published earlier this year. I think it went out for about 2 weeks, a little over 2 weeks. And 182 responses were received to the survey, 96% of those being identified as Lincoln residents, 12% being business owners. The majority were female and white or Caucasian, 10% being Hispanic. And 29% were 65 and older, and 28% were between ages 35 and 44. This came out as a separate report, so it's if you're looking for it in the staffing and organizational analysis, it is in a separate report. A couple of the highlights areas I wanted to share in there was that, questions of, does Lincoln PD reflect the community diversity? Nearly half of the community or respondents believed it did. As far as trust in the police department, you have 76% are in the positive on that, of trust in the police department, which is really great. Effectiveness, different questions asked in effectiveness, fostering relationships, addressing the needs of different communities within Lincoln, addressing the root causes of crime, training officers to handle diverse situations, and addressing mental health. All mostly within the positive. I will note that the addressing mental health seems to be the largest area of unknown, as we see here, and so, or belief that it's not effective, which may show some need for maybe some community outreach on understanding what services are being provided by the city and by the police department. just some key findings of that. 76% say they trust the police department, but only 46 agree the department's held accountable for its actions. Oftentimes internal accountability is not something that is, pushed out to the public. So it's understandable that less would have an understanding of that. Fair treatment of the residents, 62%, and the department's positive influence of 65 were the most highly rated areas on that. Communication with the public was identified as an area for improvement, 53% in agreement and 18% in disagreement on communication.
What does that mean? In terms of what is communication with the public?
I believe in today's day, you're seeing that as social media outreach, understanding things going on with the public, want to know, it's very much a digital age. And I'll talk about that a little bit in my findings and recommendations, the opportunity for that. The community and policing and visibility, only about 20% believed that the police department engaged in community policing a lot by the survey language, 21% unsure in that area. And key concerns were limited police visibility in neighborhoods, commercial areas, and a lack of proactive engagement with residents. With that said, I want to just take a step back, I'm sorry, and mention on the officer, the staffing number I mentioned, and talking that 40% unallocated time. That number can change too in terms of the desires of the law enforcement department or the police department and the city in terms of if a city wants their officers to receive more training. Every training mandate that comes down, all that plays into that number. So the more training we put on our officers, the more state mandates we see, the more we need to keep that in mind and recalculate into a staffing analysis to know, do we have the right amount of officers? And I say that, I bring this up here as the police visibility in neighborhoods comes up because that is, our 40% unallocated time, that is the time to be out in the neighborhoods. But if we're filling that with a lot of training mandates, I'm not saying that's bad, training is good, and we're, typically, I talk often a comparison between professional sports teams who train 98% of the time and perform 2% of the time versus what, emergency services have to do and perform 98% of the time and only be able to train a small amount. So training is good, but we just have to keep that in mind. The more we see of that, the more we have to make adjustments to those numbers.
Do you define community policing?
That is a big topic or big area. Community policing, I think, involvement with the community in terms of events. A lot of cities do, events like National Night Out. I'm sure, you participate in the same. Lots of other community events, community education. I mean, some places take it so far as doing block parties or projects with the community, being out there. I think even SRO programs and involvement with students, DARE programs, or even other education programs within schools, are part of community policing. Even to the point of officers, getting our officers out into the community to talk to people, encouraging them. You're driving through a neighborhood, go talk to some people. Somebody's out working in the yard, get out, go talk to them. And we're unfortunately in our job, we're so hyper-focused on finding people that are doing stuff wrong, people that are, and it becomes not necessarily intuitive for us to just go and approach somebody. And somebody may, the first time you do it, the people kind of take a step back to that too, a little defensive of like, oh, why are you coming to talk to me? I just want to say hi, right? Don't get concerned by the uniform, but.
But that's a very low number over there. Do you have recommendations to offset that or to try and improve that number?
For the
20% of respondents believe that LPD engages in community policing.
I think a lot of that can come through also social media. That's a big part through getting word out to the public, showing what they do, what the police department's doing, things that they're engaged in. So I believe you'd have to, depending on all of the community policing events that the PD is currently doing, taking an inventory of those events and then trying to get that word out and share that as well may increase that awareness of it.
So I actually think that the problem here, I mean, obviously room for growth for sure, like this is really good information, but I actually think the problem is getting more people to follow on social media, right? Because I see, and I'm not just saying this because I'm biased. I love our police, but I actually see them very engaged. Like National Night Out is always a huge success.
Every event we
Uh,
have
they're
as a
at
city,
every
they're
event.
there.
They bring out the equipment.
Mhm.
Well, we just had a story the other day where an officer, or a couple weeks ago, an officer sees a young kid crying on the sidewalk and stops, to find out what's wrong with him, and then recovers his bike, and which he's fighting crime and he's
Great.
engaging.
Yeah.
I see their social media all the time. They're putting out, content constantly.
It's
So
great.
I think maybe we need to find ways to get people to like actually follow that and see it, because I don't necessarily think that, and again, room to grow, like we can always do better. I'm not saying, oh, we're all fine. We can do better, but I don't see it a problem as that they're not out in the community. I think they're out a lot. I just think that maybe
It's an awareness and a
awareness
perception.
to pay attention and follow what they're doing. So
Very much
I
so.
think we can work on that piece,
Yeah, it's
for
easier.
sure. But
Please remember, this is a survey with, what did I say,
180
182
responses,
respondents
right?
right.
of
no,
the
I-
whole
no,
community.
I get that.
So,
Yeah.
and
So
with that,
I was just with like Councilmember Pearl, like I'm just really baffled by that number. Just even if you take it in what it is, because
Mhm.
I see them doing a lot of things.
that's,
social media.
and there's an element to that when we do surveys, and because of that, because of the selectiveness of who responds to these, and, it's always, we should look at it. Surveys like this, we should understand that's somebody's perspective out there, but it may not paint the whole picture. And because of that, none of this is used in our actual staffing analysis. We do the survey to get the understanding of what there is a perception out there. But none of this, when we talked about, even some of the final recommendations, none of that is necessarily included in that unless it aligned with something else that we saw.
Well, but it is good information, and it's
Mhm.
not to be discarded, right?
Correct.
Like I think it's helpful to grow and to do better. So
Correct.
thank you for that. Yeah. Good question.
Continuing on, just the last bit of the community survey findings, traffic enforcement was the lowest rated area, only 36% satisfaction, 36% dissatisfaction on traffic enforcement. It's not uncommon, you get people who are upset maybe about a traffic in their neighborhoods. We see this a lot, we've experienced this a lot, there may be people upset, hey, and then law enforcement goes, and then who gets stopped for speeding? So it's not uncommon to see the traffic side. Respondents requesting more patrols in their residential areas. Again, an example of community policing getting out there, regular enforcement. Not to say that they're not now, just again, this small percentage of respondents.
We already know we need more traffic.
Not
Yeah.
seeing.
Yeah.
Calls for greater transparency included more frequent crime reports, community meetings, and social media updates. In terms of funding and staffing, 44% were uncertain about the police funding, which would make sense in most cases, and 39% felt the department was underfunded. Many cited concerns over officer staffing levels, delayed response times with that, and resource constraints. So for the last bit of this review of the report, I want to go over the findings and recommendations. As I get into the recommendations, we do have them listed out as short-term, midterm, and long-term, and you'll see that here in a moment. And I just want to make a note that while we list them out based on our experience working with the PD of those timeframes, a lot of times those can change. Something presents itself organically of we can do this now, or another project going on, it fits in there. So it's not. There is some obviously leeway in how those are implemented. And before I get into that, it's very easy doing these assessments and looking at these reports to go right into findings and recommendations. But one of the things I like and really enjoy about doing these really is finding strengths of these agencies. There's always room for improvement. The best agency in the world has room for improvement, but every agency is doing something great and finding those. And so I just wanted to share some of what the team reported back as strengths of Lincoln Police Department. First and foremost was the high caliber staff members taking on additional assignments and getting the work done. Small agencies like Lincoln, everybody has to wear a lot of hats. And it was clear to the team that everybody there was willing to wear a lot of hats and again, step in to get the work done. a supportive command staff with transparent leadership, a positive work environment with low employee turnover. That's not what most agencies are now experiencing right now, low employee turnover. I work with agencies across the country, just worked with one today who is constantly losing officers. And so having low employee turnover is a testament to good culture and good organization and Chief Alves and his command, so. Digital records management system, streamlining reports, that's huge. Getting rid of all the hard copy records, being able to do that, utilizing technology to our advantage and not letting it slow us down. Advocacy for body-worn cameras, community-oriented policing. They identified that, having body-worn cameras is if you're not mandated to have them and having them, it shows a lot about that transparency level. Proactive compliant with state reporting standards and training mandates by post. This is, while it would seem, like, duh, you should do that, it's not necessarily all agencies doing that. A lot of agencies will struggle in that area. Continuing on is strong ties with other county agencies and community organizations. For law enforcement to be successful, we've got to work together with other organizations. And if we, as an agency or siloing our efforts, we're not going to get things done that we need to. So that we identified strong ties with those other agencies. A rotation policy for specialized divisions, especially in a smaller agency, is very good. Probably also helping contribute to your high retention rates, I would say, as well, because it gives officers opportunities. They're not getting, burned out. Small agencies tend to have less opportunity than big agencies. And so that really helps in that respect. And also for cross-training and making better rounded officers. The detective training and interview techniques and evidence analysis, these are specific skill sets needed by specialized positions, so having those is critical. The mental health resources for all staff are progressive and inclusive. Just on a personal note, I work a lot with mental wellness, first responder mental wellness and suicide prevention, and was very impressed with the resources I saw at Lincoln PD. The pride and victim services, again, the ability to work and not just in law enforcement, not just taking people to jail, but looking how are we, more of a holistic approach to that. And then also recognizing and prioritizing the need for school and youth safety. I mean, there's not much more that's, of greater importance to us than our children. As I said, every agency, even the best agencies out there, have room for opportunity and room for growth and improvement. And these are some of the areas that we've identified and then the corresponding recommendations after this. So again, the current police facility, inadequate for long-term operational needs. As staffing grows, the facility will need to be expanded to some degree. Again, not uncommon for agencies to be facing this in growth. And as as the city gets to that point, even considering future growth past what we've looked at in this report to allow for future expansion. A formal succession plan and formal strategic plan will help the agency with continuity and ensure that as command level members start retiring, that things move forward in the direction they've been going and without any interruptions. The investigation unit lacking a specialized based case assignment model, again, a little bit more difficult in smaller departments, but worth looking at in terms of giving certain detectives certain training and assigning those cases. What do I mean by that? Property crimes going to a certain detective, violent crimes, person crimes going to another detective where they can actually specialize in that area. Also, sometimes ICAC, the Internet Crimes Against Children, very specialized amount of work that would require specialized focus in that area.
And right now, all our detectives
We have
they do
two.
all of it. That's- Yeah.
I believe so, yes.
Got it.
A formal leadership development program, again, kind of goes in line with the succession plan, establishing advanced leadership training for not just officers once they get into positions, but preparing for taking that next level. We can look at all officers from your very newest person to the chief, are leaders in the community. So having that formal leadership development program ensures you have a much larger pool to select from of qualified people as that time comes. Lacking a schedule for audits of property and evidence and armory. These are areas that typically aren't a problem till they are a problem, then they're a big problem with evidence, property and evidence. So having audits, regular inspections that are, by policy. I believe the PD just had some additional training or sent somebody to some additional training with IAPE, which is the International Association of Property and Evidence. So it sounds like this is maybe one of those areas they're already on way to take care of that. And then current evaluation system lacking specific key performance indicators to individual jobs. Not uncommon to see, generalized police department or police officer job description, having those more specialized for each role, especially as roles are developed, such as, the specialized resource team and such, to make sure individual officers are achieving those roles. Along those lines, the specialized performance team, having performance objectives within that team to, again, new team, set up for a great cause, just ensuring that those performance objectives are being met and that the team is doing what it was intended to do. And if not, then, pivoting and adjusting would help. The uneven workload distribution, particularly the executive assistant and dispatch record supervisor, oftentimes, we do staffing analysis on patrol, we do staffing analysis on the calls for service. The administrative burden, both for, sworn staff and non-sworn staff, oftentimes we don't have data to look at that to make an analysis. And here's a case where you have a high workload on these two positions, so we can't overlook those. The community engagement, the social media outreach, again, since we've been here, it sounds like this is in the works, and which is great. I think there's a lot of power to that, and a lot of power to the police department being able to share the information that needs to be shared at the time it needs to be shared, instead of relying on other third-party sources. The expiration of the public safety tax share and ARPA funds by 2026 is going to put the police department is going to face that projected shortfall, financial shortfall. And of course, Village 5 annexation with a higher number of people is going to increase call volume and require sworn staff to take care of that. The community-generated calls for service not being equally distributed over current beats or sectors, if you will. Those 4 beats we looked at, again, is a deployment issue that the department can look at where resources are deployed, or maybe changing those beats if officers are restricted to just those beats. And then the work of professional staff, just having some tracking mechanism in there where a staffing analysis can be done to ensure we have the right people in these positions. To go through the recommendations, short-term recommendations are 1 to 2 years. As I said before, sometimes these can change depending on what comes up, opportunities that come up. And also, as I said at the beginning, I understand some of these have already been done or in the works already. So establishing mutual aid agreements with allied agencies, small departments really benefit from mutual aid agreements to have a higher level of resources available to them. So having those mutual aid agreements is very important. The training plan for each level of staff across the organization aligns also with the advanced leadership training I spoke about before. Having a training plan for everybody helps with budgeting, helps understand what training is needed when, and gives officers something to look forward to as well, understanding they have to meet these milestones of training. Establishing the audit and the audit of the property and evidence room, as we spoke about. Like, a lot of these are going to mirror the findings I just had, so I'll move faster them. We'll keep us going on time. The development of a strategic plan helps keep the department focused, helps keep everybody at the department aligned. 1, 3, 5-year planning for the agency with goals to meet. Also, having that mission, having the core values, having a strategic plan can really align officers in the bigger picture, which also helps with culture and retention. The creation of a lead dispatcher position to even out the span of control that we saw within dispatch. Establishing a formal budgeting program internally to help the PD help stay on track and reviewing that on a quarterly basis, if you will. Determine the fungibility of CFD development fees. This was to help keep the department funded. Assess the opportunities to diversify the city funding streams and reduce the reliance on the general fund. Prioritize the capital investments to avoid increased future pricing, as I mentioned before, on fleet's a prime example of that, waiting to get the amount of vehicles that are needed, and keeping in mind as staffing increases, more vehicles are going to be needed as well. The implement call source indicator indicator in the dispatch system. This is really to identify self-initiated versus community-generated. One of the areas when we're doing a staffing analysis, we tend to identify areas where certain technology markers, if you will, like this call source indicator would help have an even more accurate staffing analysis. Analyzing the patrol time spent on school-generated responses. We spoke about that a little bit ago. The analysis of the burglary alarm responses and the geographical distribution of the beats. The investigative unit time tracking via the radio logs is really on multi-unit responses. And this is not uncommon or unique to Lincoln. Oftentimes we see where the CAD data cannot differentiate between which officers respond. And so while we know how much time we spent, we can't say how many officers that takes. So by having a unit time tracking via radio logs would allow an analyst to really dive in and say, I know these types of calls take this amount of time based on multiple officers being on scene. Developing methods to track passive long-running calls is really not as common of an issue, but when you have officers out on a call for an extended period of time, a method, again, this just helps with the future staffing analyses. Providing training and policy on radio use for those radio logs. Developing methods to track ancillary work time. Again, we spoke on the staffing, we look at administrative time, ancillary work time often falls into those. So if an officer has a secondary assignment doing something, knowing how much time they're spending on those allows you a more accurate assessment. Standardizing the tracking of casino-related calls, tracking your internet crimes against children investigations, and the investigating the anomalies in case assignment dates. That was something we saw in looking at the data. There was certain cases that were assigned after a case closed, and more probably on an investigations end, but just making sure the data is accurate in there. Moving on to midterm recommendations, which are 3 to 5 years, really establishing a formal evaluation system and those KPIs for all staff in each position. Evaluating the staffing, case assignments, and specializations for detective divisions. Restructuring the staffing functions to enhance leadership, workload equity, and community engagement. As I said before, oftentimes overlooked is the administrative workload policing in 2025 has created. Whether, through audits, through, looking at body-worn cameras, through training mandates, lots of mandates, the administrative side, whether that's on command or supervisors, or even your non-sworn staff. Revisiting traffic SRO and SRT unit analysis in 3 to 5 years. I would even add to that and recommend even your patrol. You're, continually looking at your patrol. These are not one and you forget about it. Do it once every 10 years. Demands are constantly changing. We see, not just community demand, but also the administrative demand by training mandates and such. Strengthen the output and outcome tracking for the professional services unit, your non-sworn staff, to be able to analyze if they're staffed adequately. Lastly, we look at long-term recommendations, which is to look at the police department facility, start planning out for that, plan to phase in sworn staffing increases as that community demand increases with projection increases, and also evaluate opportunities for a regional dispatch center. We understand this has been done many, many years ago. It would be potentially an opportunity having a regional dispatch center and a resource, lessen resource burden on the city and police department to have more of a regionalized dispatch center. Questions?
Thank you. That was great. question. I have a couple, but let you guys go first.
You mentioned on the proactive time to standard, and then you mentioned that 40% is the standard. What did you find that LPD is running at this point?
I would have to go back and look, we only measured the, the community generated demand. So I'd have to go back and ask the analyst. He didn't specifically put where it currently is right now, of that. But we looked at the community demand. I would imagine it's right around that area because we looked at the community demand and then we said, if needing 40%, how many officers do you need now on patrol? And that's the number we came up with is what's currently staffed.
Okay. Secondly, on the burglar alarms and welfare checks, they're high. Do you have, is that by beat also? Do you have that data?
I don't, we may have it by beat. I believe the report didn't break it down by beat. We may, in the full report, I take that back. In the full report, it may be broken down by beat. We did do a lot of the different calls for service broken down. I'm sorry, I don't have the full report in front of me, but I do believe it may be broken down by beat.
And then as we increase the number of officers, does that include the potential for adding additional police services that we may not have at this point? And I think we probably had in the past.
The staffing number we looked at to increase would be to just handle patrol functions.
Oh, okay.
Yes, patrol functions, that community generated calls for service. There will, of course, be need, you're gonna generate more calls for service. You're gonna generate more investigative cases that are gonna require more, detectives and investigations positions. You're gonna, probably have an increase in school resources. And that's why it's so important to continually look at these, but also the factors. And the report does break down more of the individualized units and the demand on those individualized units. But it's why it's so important to keep continually looking at those to see how that's fluctuating.
Okay, and a question for the city manager. Is the CFD component for police services, we'll be keeping in line as we grow and add on both for all of our areas?
So they're designed to meet essentially patrol demand. What we could think about is balancing or up charging a little bit to add, a small proportionate amount per new resident to add on some of those other services that are not necessarily just the basic patrol, which is the meat and potatoes work. But generally, yes, like all new subdivisions are paying into that public safety CFD, which are funding portions of police officers that are, conceivably going to serve those communities.
Well, this is probably not a short answer question, but just generally speaking, how would we benefit from a regionalized dispatch system recommendation?
Again, I believe you have multiple agencies within and it's not my area of expertise, full disclosure there. But the regional, you've got multiple agencies in one area, one kind of generalized area, countywide, let's say, all needing dispatch functions. And it's not uncommon to see those regionalized dispatch functions instead of having to staff and handle the system yourself. It is split up amongst multiple organizations into a regional. That's really basic. I apologize.
No, that's okay. I had heard about this a little bit in the last 6 months, just kind of looking through LAFCO. And I did see a report that was, I think, introduced in that commission prior, a very detailed report, actually. And I wasn't aware that there were so many different organizations in dispatch that could be adding to our call time in the region, not just in Lincoln. And that was a recommendation that I think was put forth. And I was just curious if you knew, which it's okay if you don't, what that would do potentially to our call volume or call time, response time, and how much that could potentially reduce it.
I think doing a study, a dispatch study on call waiting, call handling time on the dispatch side was beyond this scope. But
Gotcha.
that could definitely be the next step in considering that. I would say would be to look at a dispatch-specific study for that and maybe compare that to benchmarks and regional centers.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. That was it.
Can I get you to pull up your first recommendation, short term? I think it's the second slide.
Back one.
Okay, maybe back one. Is there more than this? Where's the CFD one? There it is. Okay, so the city manager may have already partially addressed this, but I wanted to, if you could elaborate on the fungibility of CFD development fees and what examples you had for that.
I cannot. I apologize. I'm the law enforcement side of this.
Okay.
But I'm not going to leave it at that because you have questions on it. So if you have a specific question, I can get that information to you if you're looking for specific examples of this.
Yeah.
I'll have to just have our financial analyst do this. I have a Excel spreadsheet at home for my checking account. That's about it. Budget.
So then you could maybe add to the list the second thing about access, opportunities to diversify city funding streams and examples for what that is.
Okay. I will get that.
Thank you.
John, weren't you actually asking about whether the forecast CFD fee is going to cover the increase in requirements?
Well, I wasn't clear if that particular line item was the question you asked, which is essentially what you just said, or it was something else. It wasn't clear to me what they were going for, or if there were other things beyond what Sean had mentioned about expanding the fee beyond just patrol, if that's what they meant, or if there were other things that they were thinking of in that recommendation that I would like to learn and know.
We want to double click on that bullet.
Okay, so I just had one question. I like the idea of the standardized tracking for the casino calls, but don't we have an agreement with them that they provide funding each year to cover most of those?
So it's a charged call for service model, and I don't, there's some specific detail about when that is applied and when it is not applied. So what the data that he showed would have been primarily calls for service that occurred within city limits that are associated with a customer, most likely, of the casino. And so they were there, they participated in whatever they participated in, and then they get pulled over or fight or whatever it may be, right? That is not something that we have traditionally charged for, because you got to imagine it'd be kind of an odd scenario. Like chief's officers get out there and they say, hey, were you gambling earlier? And, so it's like not really an excess, but they do. And then there's some details to the agreement that I can't remember off the top of my head, but yes, they exist. I don't know, Chief, you want to jump on that?
Yeah, so the casino tracking it's a historical tracking that we've done since the opening of the casino, essentially just for conversation points if needed in the future. But yeah, it's just drawing the nexus of when we contact somebody, if they were just leaving the casino or had something to do, and the issue that we're dealing with right now is a direct result of that. But like Sean said, it's nothing that we charge for. It's not a part of the agreement. The agreement is very finite, but it just allows us for statistical recovery later on if we ever wanted to re-enter into a conversation with them about the impacts to the city.
Great, thank you. Well, thank you very much. I would like to just open it up for public comment on this, since it's really great information and a lot to digest. But even though we're just receiving a report, I would like to open it up if there's anybody who would like to make a comment on the information that we just received. Anybody on Zoom? Nope. Okay, well, thank you very much. We really, really appreciate your time and effort.
Yep.
And it's good stuff to know how we can grow and do better. Thank you.
Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to move on to item 6, public comment on non-agenda items within the subject matter jurisdiction of the council. All speakers will be limited to 3 minutes unless extended by the mayor. All comments or questions should be addressed to the mayor, and in most cases, the city council is prohibited from discussing or taking action on any item not appearing on the posted agenda, but may engage in brief discussion, provide direction to city staff, or schedule items for future meetings. I do have a few cards to start with. Mr. Stan Nader.
Madam Mayor and Council, my name is Stan Nader and I live in the 12 Ridges area. On October 1st, I received this mailer from the city inviting the residents of Lincoln to participate in a community survey regarding their opinion on how the city is doing providing services, particularly relating to public safety. The following day, I completed the survey and watched the presentation link showing the results of the previous survey sent out early in September. Unfortunately, only 400 people responded to that survey. My wife received an email from the library inviting people to respond, which she did. The majority of the respondents to that survey were very positive. Hopefully, by sending this mailer to the Lincoln residents, more citizens will respond and understand the critical nature of this matter. I was pleased to see that the city was offering neighborhood groups the opportunity to have town hall type meetings, to have face-to-face conversations with elected officials and city staff about how the city can maintain or improve the quality of life that we currently enjoy. On October 2nd, KCRA News had a segment on the city of Rockland, which was sending a mailer to its residents to get their input on the city services, as the city stated they are struggling to maintain basic levels of service. Several weeks ago, the city of Folsom announced they have a $3 million deficit in their general fund budget and are looking to reduce service levels. The city of Sacramento in June approved a revised budget with a $62 million deficit and a $60 million deficit for the next year. The city of Stockton in its 24-25 budget had a $83 million deficit, and in their 25-26 budget, a $14 million deficit. The city of Rancho Cordova is experiencing outpacing revenue and over expenses. Has expenses outpacing revenue, and one of their many sources of revenue being business operational taxes hasn't been updated since 1991. I'm not sure what's in the water, but there seems to be a universal challenge in this region. Many of these communities have a substantially greater commercial development and yet are having similar issues as Lincoln. It should be the hope that the citizens of Lincoln will recognize the importance of this and providing additional resources to support the quality of life that we all enjoy. Thank you.
Thank you, Sam. Appreciate that. All right, Yasmin West.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, council members. Thank you for letting me speak today. My name is Yasmin West, and I am here on behalf of my nonprofit radio station that I co-founded with my husband, Robert. We started this is about 3 years ago. there was a personal tragedy where a friend of my husband committed suicide. And so he was looking for something to reach out to the community, provide some visibility and outreach. And he came up with this concept of Radio Bob. And so we have grown to the point where we felt it was appropriate to approach the community and share some of the resources that are available for anyone that wants to work with us. So he's going to go over some more detailed stuff and some fun projects we're working on, but I'll just give you a brief overview of some of the information you'll find on our website. So Radio Bob is a Lincoln-based internet radio station, which is expanding its reach beyond traditional music programming to create a comprehensive platform for community wellness and support. Radio Bob broadcasts 24/7 from the West Coast to local, national, and worldwide audiences. The station combines premium music with educational content focused on physical, emotional, and financial well-being. Unlike conventional radio stations that rely on advertising revenue, Radio Bob operates as a nonprofit organization sustained entirely through listener donations. This model allows the station to maintain uninterrupted programming without commercial breaks, while offering diverse content that ranges from curated music playlists to live shows and podcasts. The station's programming strategy adapts to listeners' daily routines with energizing music during commute and work hours, complemented by meaningful discussions on topics designed to impact listeners' lives. This approach reflects the organization's broader mission to build a network of resources and community services that help individuals and businesses thrive. So this is just kind of our broader mission, and we invite members of the community to reach out to us. And with that, I thank you, and I will let Bob take it.
All right, Bob, come on up.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor, council, and staff, as well as people who are in the house this evening. As my wife explained, we are Radio Bob. One of the reasons why we're here tonight is because we knew not just meet people on social media or talk to them through advertising means, we actually get out to events. These events are local, Fowler's Farmers Market, for example, on a Sunday morning, Placerville Speedway, the Week of Speed at Bonneville, Utah, for 4 days as a guest of a NASCAR team, and most recently as a guest of the NHRA at Sonoma for 3 days with our booth, broadcasting live from that event. Why is this important? Because I heard a rumor that you might try to put cars down your airstrip. And if you're going to do that, you really need some help making sure that you know how these cars operate and run. And if you don't have somebody, I have multitudes of people, drivers, NASCAR teams, drag race teams, performance companies, and others that would be more than interested in helping you. Not to mention the fact that we will offer to do anything we can to help you out on that project. Or other projects that support nonprofits or support well-being. My wife did not mention those words in between the music are limited, 3 to 5 minutes. So they don't totally interrupt your day and you won't turn off the radio, which is very important to me because I need listeners. The other things you might not have mentioned is no politics. We don't make judgments. We don't ask people to make judgments. We want a free space where people can come, listen, learn, maybe pick up one of our 20 shows that are offered from 3 continents. My jazz show comes from San Diego, along with my live morning DJ. My R&B show comes from Australia. My, where's B-Man? New Zealand. 80s show comes from New Zealand. My podcast, however, comes from up there. Comes directly from NASA to me. And I am a very small fish. So that took a lot of work. We're not afraid of the work. Again, that's why we're here. We want more work. So we'd like to introduce ourselves to you, the city, and to any organization that might find a way to benefit as well, please get a hold of me. I will leave a stack of cards with my phone number, my email on it, and cards that you can pass out to people that won't have my email.
Thank you. So does your card have how someone could find your radio station?
Absolutely.
Okay, great.
And that's really easy.
Oh. .com. All right.
That's it. Radio
Great.
Bob USA. There's a Radio Bob in Germany and we talk. Why not? It's a big world. That's it. That's all we got.
Thank you
Thank
very much. Really
Thank you.
appreciate that. Yeah, that's great.
Well, it depends on you're a later, so.
Yeah.
I
They-
work for a city as well, and I have a 6 o'clock call.
All right. Tory Borse.
Thank you very much for having me. I'm Victoria or Tori Borse, and I wanted to truly just say thank you very much. I'm the new president of the Lincoln 4th of July Foundation, so if you have seen the 4th of July here in town, we definitely takes a lot, but I'm the new lead on that, so I wanted to say thank you for the city's continued support, past support. We could not do it without you, and I'm looking forward to a great 2026 4th of July experience. So I just want to say thank you.
You're funny, Tori. If we've seen the 4th of July, like, that's great. That's,
Well, and some people are like, where do you, I see on Facebook, they're like, where do you go to watch the fireworks? I'm like, okay, you must either live under a rock or you're brand new
Yeah.
here because.
are you new here? Yeah, no.
Yeah, you're like, you must be new. So
Awesome.
anyways, I just wanted to say thank you very much.
No,
So,
thank you for
Yay.
all your work. You are amazing. The whole team is amazing.
We have a
and
great team. We have a
I'm
very good team.
very excited that you are stepping into this position and we're here to support. So
Yay. Thank
obviously,
you very
yeah.
much for having me.
Thank you. All right, that's all the cards I have. Is there anybody else in the room that would like to make a public comment? Mr. Chapman, I did get your thing, but come on up if you want.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, council members, and city staff, and all the people that showed up this evening. Yes, I did leave you a document. I simply wanted you to take and check that out. I turned in a ADA compliance grievance form back on August the 25th, and unfortunately, I've spoken to absolutely 0 people, no contact whatsoever, and we're now sitting on week number 7. So if you could look into that, I'd appreciate it. The last item I had on here, give this a little bit of thought. The good news is we're all more alike than we are apart. At the beginning of every night's meeting, as we did today, we pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. Over the past couple of decades, we have become pretty much the divided states of America. The golden rule is hardly seldom seen or heard. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. We were once a nation where the eyes of other countries looked up to all of us. We stood for hope, truth, justice, in short, the American way. And united we stood. Unfortunately, we're not standing as tall. Now, in many cases, we are divided and falling. When our nation's leaders turned out to have our military go up against and deal with our citizens on American soil, we no longer are together. We are divided. We have become the haves and the have-nots. We have a system based on the rule of order of law and our Constitution, which we should. Truth, justice, and the American way, which no longer seems to be that as it was. Lying has become the norm, and unfortunately, the scary part, it's being accepted. The pursuit of happiness has many attached strings. Our Constitution has become words on paper and have little meaning as opposed to the past. I refuse to choose the fact that I'm either a blue or a red mark on some of our national maps. I am first and foremost, without a doubt, a citizen of the United States. We as the United America need more than ever to eliminate the outrage, the craziness, and get back to the rule of law. and eliminate the chaos. The freedoms we've cherished and believe in have just started to disappear at an alarming rate. Unfortunately, if you look up the word chaos in the dictionary, don't be surprised if you see a picture of America next to it. Our leaders have let us down, and yet we have let them down. When we stood by and sent a message to them that as to what they've been doing for the last decade or two, we also let ourselves down. We teach our children the difference between a lie and the truth. Maybe that's where we need to start. Thank you.
Mr. Chapman? Anybody else? Let Mr. Chapman move first and then you can.
Green.
There you go.
Thanks. I just wanted to share some things that my kids did at the library. First off, the art night, I thought it was kind of cool. I just thought I had a little smile on your face. We all did this little art thing. This one was mine, a little different than the other ones, as well as this was my son's right there. And this was my teenagers.
Very good.
And then I think that there was my little 5-year-olds. So I just wanted you to know how much that my family appreciates the work that's done there. But I think more importantly, like, how amazing is this brochure that was there that they put together? A lot of work that was put into this, and the map that was put together. It was just a lot of work, very good quality work. When I was there, I didn't get to stay the whole time. We just other things going on, but I sat at these tables with this owl artwork, and there was 2 seniors sitting next to me working on their owl project. And then at the same table, there was I want to say Chinese. I think they were speaking Chinese. The 2 little girls were speaking Chinese. There was no English coming out of them. But when I asked them if my kids could sit down there, so it was a lot of diversity. It was really nice. And I just wanted to share that I really enjoyed the art night, and the parking was insane. It was full everywhere. So just wanted you guys to know. Thank you.
Right. Thank you. Yes, we agree. Our library is pretty amazing. Thank you for sharing that. Right. Anybody else? Anybody on Zoom?
Hi, I'll go ahead and unmute Fran Nevis.
Hi, Fran.
Good evening. Happy birthday.
Oh, thank you.
You know, it's Charlie Kirk's birthday as well.
I do know that. Yes.
Well, I want to say a couple of things tonight. Last year I was there talking about women's suffragists and voting. And I also did a presentation on the Poets Club of Lincoln with Alan Lowe. You might remember. We had our contest winner event in October. And we're having again this Sunday at the Salt Mine from 3 to 5:30. And we had 146 poets enter poems this year. There were 283 poems submitted from 3 countries.
Wow.
And yeah, 4 other states besides California. And the 3 countries were Israel, Hong Kong, and Canada. So this little club of ours, you know, gets around. And some of our members and some of the residents from Lincoln are actually poet laureates in other towns. And for a long time, we've been thinking maybe Lincoln should be having a poet laureate. Some of our guest poets are poet laureates. And it's just really interesting what they can do with a city, for a city, in the city. So I wanted to invite any of you to come to our winners event on Sunday at the Salt Mine from 3 to 5:30. And then I went to the DLA last week, and Chief Mejia gave a wonderful presentation there. I wanted to comment on that it was just really well done and a lot of information. And the DLA has been getting like 40, 50 members at almost every meeting lately. So if any of you want to come, it's on the second Thursday at 8:30 downstairs on the first floor. I also wanted to comment on that officer who helped the teenager with the bike. that was a very interesting presentation. I watched that night, and I was really happy to see that. I don't know if it made the paper. You know, I wish we had more input in Lincoln in the paper. But, you know, maybe that's something we can improve on. And then I was wondering if you were taking FG off of the consent item. And if not, I would just like to make a comment about it now. That's the property on Oak Tree Lane that the city wants to get from the county for the landscaping, utilities and everything to expand Oak Tree Lane. And what I want to say is, because of the discrepancy in the money, you know, that Lincoln gets from the county dollar, maybe instead of purchasing it, maybe we could ask the county to transfer that land to us. I know that's way out there, but it's a thought, or maybe we can negotiate. Also, that piece of property, that parcel, 351 Oak Tree Lane, is opposite the church and the 3 exits from our parking lots. And I know people have spoken to you before about, they've said 600 cars 3 times on Sunday. So that's really 1,800 cars. And it's really 6 times because they come in and they leave. So you've got a lot of cars coming out of there. And we were hoping maybe one of those turns on Oak Tree Lane could be a roundabout. So I'm just putting it out there. I don't know if anyone else has asked about that. But particularly, let's ask the county to just give it to us. What do you think about that? Just put it out there, right?
Yeah. Well,
Okay,
we have a lot of irons in the fire with the county right now, Fran, but thank you. I really appreciate your comments.
okay, and that's really all I had to say tonight.
Thank you. Appreciate that very much. Anybody
Thank
else?
you. Thank you for all you do.
Thanks, Fran. Anybody else?
Lena Lebowski, you have been unmuted. Please provide your public comment.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. We all have received our letters in the mail regarding police and fire. And there's lots of talk on social media about that letter. And the one, not that I'm in charge of social media, but I do try to answer a few questions here and there. But one that really has me stumped is people say, well, we already have a CFD that we pay fire and police on our tax bill, you know, what are we supposed to do? So I'm just curious if there's an answer that I could pass along to them that, I mean, if you can do that, I would appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Lena. Sean, you want to?
Yeah, hi, Lena, and yes, I got your email. I will call you. So the answer to that, the CFD you have to think of as bridging the most minimum of gaps, right? So if the increase in need for fire, police, or just general fund services, because there are other services that are funded out of that bucket of money, you know, is proportionately increased for every home that's added, and we receive, depending on where it's built, we receive a percentage of property tax that's split with the county at various levels. Depending on the split, the CFD is designed to try to meet the absolute minimum needed to serve. And one of the things that you'll noticed in the outreach materials that went out is that's really, I think, you know, achieving the absolute minimum for the community is not where we want to be from my view. One of the things you heard in the presentation earlier tonight was that there's these additive services, and as your community grows, the types of fire calls that you receive and the types of police calls that you receive and the matters that you have to deal with get more complex the larger you get. Crimes get more complex. Things that aren't an issue in a town of 5,000 people become an issue in a town of 50,000 people. So that's part one. Part two is also trying to get we're really trying to get at, setting aside the finance component, is what the community expects out of their public safety departments in particular. What services are we not providing that we should provide? Basic life support, advanced life support is sort of the key one, but there are plenty of others, traffic, enhanced recreational services, et cetera. So we're trying to get an idea of what are the priorities, what do people want, and then figure out how we fund that appropriately. So hopefully, and Lena, I'll call you, there's more to that, but just since we're on time tonight.
All right, thank you. Appreciate that. Thank you, Lena. Anybody else? No? Okay, all right, we'll close public comment. We'll come back to the council for item 7, consent agenda. Is there any item on the consent that council would like to pull or have a question about? No? Okay, then I'll take a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll move.
Second.
Okay, roll call, please.
Mayor Pro Tem Brown?
Yes.
Councilmember Reedy?
Yes.
Councilmember Pearl?
Yes.
Councilmember Eklund? Mayor Andriata?
Yes, thank you. All right, we have no public hearings tonight, and so that takes us to item number 9, general business. We have a downtown master plan update discussion, and Efren is joining us. Hello, sir.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. Efren Sanchez, Senior Planner with Community Development Department. Staff would like to provide you with an update on the Downtown Master Plan project, as it's been a few months since you last checked in. We kicked off the project in August of 2024 with our lead consultant, Opticos Design, Inc. In the last quarter of 2024, we had our first public workshop and stakeholder meeting. In March of 2025, Opticos led a 3-day design charrette to engage the community, solicit feedback, and help us develop a vision for the Downtown Master Plan. In August of 2025, sub-consultants Cascadia and Wood Rogers collaborated with city staff to identify major infrastructure capacity bottlenecks and drafted a revenue analysis. Currently, Opticos is working on the Downtown Master Plan and collaborating with staff on objective design and development standards. We're also in the process of scheduling a kickoff meeting for the engagement plan that will feed into this project. In the winter of 2026, we plan on having our second stakeholder meeting and public workshop, which will include the administrative draft of the master plan. And subsequently, in spring of 2026, we plan on having the third stakeholder meeting and public workshop focusing on the objective design and development standards. Summer of 2026, we aim for the public review of the master plan, the odds, and the environmental document. And then finally, in the fall of 2026, we anticipate having our adoption hearing with City Council. So that's just a big project overview. As a reminder, the purpose of the Downtown Master Plan and Objective Design and Development Standards is to, 1, provide the tools to transform downtown into a recognizable center and vibrant destination for both residents and visitors. 2, facilitate the mixed-use infill housing and expand affordable housing opportunities. The image on the screen is the project boundary for the Downtown Master Plan. The Downtown Master Plan and Odds project is designed to facilitate meaningful community engagement, update the vision for downtown, remove zoning barriers so downtown can thrive. The Objective Design and Development Standards, or ODDS for short, will encourage diverse housing opportunities, streamline approvals, and support a dynamic mix of residential, commercial, and public spaces. Also explore financing options for infrastructure improvements. You might be wondering, why not a specific plan? Well, it's essentially flexibility. While both a master plan and specific plan set a vision and policy framework, a master plan can be updated more efficiently and as community needs evolve. Predictability and clarity, a master plan establishes clear intended outcomes, cost and time efficiency. Developing a master plan in odds is typically faster and less expensive than preparing a specific plan, which requires detailed land use analysis, infrastructure planning, and more extensive environmental review. That's for the specific plan. It's streamlined approvals. The odds simplifies the approval process, and its form-based approach ensures predictability design outcomes. Why a form-based approach? A form-based approach up to the odds establishes clear, measurable standards that provide predictability for both developers and the community. Development becomes more predictable because it is guided by the built form of buildings rather than separation of land uses. Form-based odds emphasize the relationship between buildings, streets, and public spaces, and essentially it's supporting high-quality projects. They encourage mixed-use blocks and neighborhoods instead of segregating land uses into traditional zoning districts. The result is for more walkable, attractive, and cohesive neighborhoods rather than fragmented patchworks of land uses. As opposed to our current Euclidean Title 18 zoning code, form-based odds supports mixed use and walkability by encouraging blending of housing, retail, offices, and civic spaces, all within a close proximity to each other, unlike our traditional zoning. It provides building form standards such as height, setbacks, and footprint to shape the intended physical form of the development. It promotes smooth transitions between private and public spaces through architectural features such as porches, terraces, forecourts, stoops, shop fronts, galleries, and arcades. It ensures the project meets the objective standards quality for ministerial non-discretionary approval, streamlining the planning process. It helps the city comply with state mandates that require faster approval processes for certain housing projects. As part of the form-based odds, development can be regulated through building types, architectural style, sustainability, or signage standards. The more of these components are included, the greater the predictability and implementation. At this stage, staff is considering the inclusion of building type standards. By including building type standards, form-based odds can allow a range of house-scale buildings such as single-family homes, duplexes, fourplexes, cottages, courts, pocket neighborhoods, all within the same general area. This approach supports a variety of unit sizes, price points, and open space arrangements. In contrast, density-based regulations often limit this diversity of building types within a neighborhood. Each building type can have its own set of standards, such as the number of units to a building, the height of a building, the footprint and shape of the building, the entry and location of how the pedestrians access the actual building, and vehicle access and parking, and of course, open space. Of course, regulating by building type has both its pros and cons. Pro, it can incentivize a wider range of housing options that better fit the neighborhood. Con, some developers may view it as too complex or inflexible. This slide illustrates how building types can be used to guide infill development in a way that fits within the existing neighborhood context. So the goal is to facilitate infill housing that is compatible with its surrounding, meaning the new homes have similar form, scale, and building type as those already in the area. Using building types also allows for greater predictability in what gets built. Instead of relying on traditional zoning standards like setbacks, height, and lot coverage, as shown on the graphic to the right, and top right, a form-based approach helps us actually visualize the form and scale of what will be developed. At the bottom of the slide, you can see an example of a form-based odds model, which shows different infill housing types, such as triplex, fourplex, or duplex with an ADU, that all maintain that same compatible scale in the neighborhood and allows it to be more, provide a more neighborhood feel. Overall, when applied thoughtfully, building types can provide greater diversity in unit size, experience, and price points, while also enhancing neighborhood character. At this stage, staff is considering adding building type standards to the form-based odds and welcome your feedback. Last month, the Planning Commission was asked if building type standards should be included in the objective design and development standards. Their direction was for staff to move forward with building type standards. Staff now pose the same question to City Council. The question is, should building type standards be included in the objective design and development standards? This concludes my presentation. At this time, we welcome your feedback. Please let me know if you have any questions.
Great, thank you, Efren, appreciate that. All right, questions? Go ahead.
Sure. So can you, So I get there's not zoning for light industrial, auto use, other kinds of things. It's kind of form-based in it. But is there any, how do those things work together? So if you want to have a mixed-use building and there's an auto use there, can the auto use go back in the mixed-use building? Like, how do we essentially effectuate a change in use in the downtown where we can move things that are more of like an industrial or light industrial auto use to the appropriate spots in the downtown that may be better compatible with the overall master plan? Like, how do those things work together?
So yeah, so generally, like with having this form-based code, essentially it's more driven towards like infill development. So we're moving away from utility and zoning and greenfield development to more like infill development. And with that, like these are the standards that would be applicable for a site that's either vacant or they want to redevelop.
So is there a way, so much like we did with drive-throughs, we said, look, if you've got one, you can keep it, but if you stop using it, it can't go back and be used again. Is something like that layered on top of this to then take auto uses, for example, that may no longer be for a while and say, okay, now when that gets redeveloped, it can't be redeveloped in an auto use. It has to be redeveloped into something else. Like I'm missing how we can sort of nudge some of these things in the downtown that are incompatible with the overall vision over time to places that make more sense.
If I
Separate, isn't
could, that would be kind of a separate action, right? Where this is really talking about developing a form-based code for, like Efren was saying, for vacant lots, right? But if we're looking to make a change in the zoning, and these form-based codes we were just discussing today could necessitate a change in the zoning overall, because it allows for denser projects. It allows for projects that have a shift in the way that we traditionally look at parking. So we could need to make a change in the zoning to accommodate these. We're still trying to flesh that out. But so making a change that moved an area where use is permitted that is now, that's a different thing than what we're trying to accomplish.
Right, but it seems like there's some value in them working in parallel and coming together at the end.
There may be.
Okay.
Yeah, well, I think that one of the discussions that's going to happen when you have drafts of documents that you're trying to determine if you're going to approve or not is that inevitably there will be a parallel conversation about what uses just don't make sense. They made sense 40 years ago, make a little less sense today. And one of the things that we could come out of it with is sort of a loose list of things that you do want to, changing things inside the zoning code just in terms of allowable and unallowable uses is code amendments, which we can do. And so perhaps part of that process is, it'd be useful to have some council and community feedback. There's still quite a bit of outreach to be had here, so that's part of maybe some of the discussion that can occur, which is what kinds of things don't make sense on that level anymore, even if they're going to remain for many, many years. But at some point, to your point about drive-throughs, they move on and they're redeveloped under this code.
Right, and to Councilmember Reedy's comment, much like we did an ordinance revision and put in a moratorium on drive-throughs, the council could give us direction to establish a moratorium for different types of auto uses downtown. Those businesses would then be pre-existing non-conforming uses and would be allowed to stay until they close business, sold the property. But if it would help prevent more, auto-based type businesses going in downtown. But it is sort of a separate conversation.
Yeah, to the extent to which getting community feedback on that at the same time you're doing this, if that's possible and seems like it'd be valuable to do. I see a little bit of a two-track here, especially if community involvement's involved in some of those
Yeah.
Good point.
And
parallel tracks.
I've seen in form-based codes too, that where they have like a section that says, that addresses legal non-conforming uses. And so that could be incorporated into this as well.
My second question for you is you asked for direction on building types.
Yes.
Right? Give me the pros and cons of including or not including.
So the pros is essentially it's more of by having building types, like everyone, both the community and the developers know exactly what we envision and what we want in development. Like for example, if you have a building type standard for duplex, we have the objective design standards for that duplex itself. And there's no guessing game of like, hey, like if I apply it to do this and go through the discretionary process, like, will I even get approved for this, you know? So that's one of the pros. It's more certainty and more, you know, essentially everyone can visualize what that's gonna look like. Cons is like, you know, you can have some developers that say like, oh, that's too restrictive or that's inflexible. I already have my baked project that I have been applying everywhere in all different jurisdictions. I want to stick with that product and not change anything.
So in other communities that have adopted form-based, which way have they gone with the building types question?
The building type questions, they've incorporated it. And so I did reach out to the city of Davis, and they did tell me to like just make sure that you include all the different building types that you're looking for, and also make in existing conditions of like what's out there in downtown now, and try to make sure that those are covered in the building types.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah, I've got a question.
Okay.
I'm open to the form-based concept over here. It seems like it's an improvement. But looking at the map, do we have sufficient vacant land to make this optionable? Or are we talking about tear downs and reconstructing?
It's both like infill development, like so vacant land, but also it could open up the possibility of, you know, how you mentioned tear down and building.
We don't have much vacant land, do we?
That was my question. What do we have in the downtown that's vacant? That was a good question.
Yeah.
There's like
Well,
a handful of sites,
Elizabeth's-
but no.
Elizabeth's area. But there's not much. I mean, even if you look out on the expanded map, there just doesn't seem much in the way of vacant land here.
Yeah, we've identified with our consultant, maybe 8 or 10 parcels, I want to say, that
Roughly,
would
yeah.
fall into this to be able to utilize this form-based code.
But then again, like if we're doing a form-based code, like a underutilized site, like something that just has, you know, one structure or something, that could be really well like redeveloped or a candidate for this form-based code to, you know, tear that down and build it up again.
Seems like the devil's in the details on this.
Brittany, do you have any questions?
No, I appreciate you doing this presentation. I know you've done a lot of outreach, and we've been kind of tracking this all the way from our planning commissioner days when we first approached this idea, and now it's coming to fruition. It's chugging along. It's a very long process, but I think I'm excited to see the end result. I think it's going to be a value add in the long run. And I know that, yeah, I agree with what you were saying about it could be maybe a 2-track thing with auto uses, and that's something that we should probably look at sooner than later because of the outreach necessity of it. That was a good point, something I hadn't thought of yet.
Well, and I agree, because I think there's other uses that we need to look at that aren't compatible with what we want downtown to do. And I don't want to be surprised by something opening up that is not what we want there. Not that they can't open someplace else, but yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Efren. Any public comment on this item? Okay, Stella?
Thank you, Efren, for that presentation, Madam Mayor. I took some time, obviously, to really try to understand this project because I live in the heart of it. And what I'm understanding from the members of the public that I had a chance to speak to is what brings me to downtown, and talking to Opticos, the consultants, and how do I get there? There were conversations of it's landlocked. I want maybe a bridge I can go over the creek to, but really that thought of what brings you to downtown, why would you come, and how do we increase the amount of use and commercial use down there. One of the things I had heard someone say was about in another city they were in, that they had done a reviving of their downtown area, and they had built so tall buildings where now it's all shaded in the streets and you couldn't see the sun, you couldn't see the sky anymore. And so in some of these types and these building types that they have, taken the thought of how tall we want our downtown to look and what that looks like. So this is our form, this is what we want downtown to look like. And these building types that Effort and the team are looking forward to come with are some guidelines. So if I'm a developer and I want to come in and develop downtown, I say, okay, I've got these 15 different types that I can put in this opportunity site that I have. And then here is plan 1 through 15. And I said I wanted number 7. Number 7 looks simple, and this is my guide that I can do. And I just make it, it's, as he talked about, developers, it's not flexible for them. They have to do that. So we have some very strong plans put in place. And it sounds like Opticos has done this in other cities. And so it's adopting what they've done in other cities for ours. But I really want to make sure that we as a city think about the Planning Commission, the City Council, most definitely the staff that are working on this, that we really take a look at what they're bringing to us, that it does suit with what we're looking for, what we want it to be like. And if there is something we want to check off the list because it doesn't really look into our vision, that we have the ability to do that. You know, there was some opportunity sites they had put in the project. They were pink highlighted in their map, and I'm sure that's something that's available to look at. But there was a lot of them that they were there. And as they sat there and designed these sites, they actually said within this amount of acreage that's on this site, here's an example of what you can build within that acreage that's there. And they had some very good ideas with that. So really these building types, these form-based codes is what gets built there. And so I want to ensure, they did talk about Davis was one of their projects. So it's great to hear that the team went and talked with Davis in regards to that. But the thought that gets put into that and understanding that comes to your desk, that we ask those critical questions of, does this sit with our vision? And are we able to form the city downtown that we're looking for, as it's the heart of our city and it's pretty expanded out. So thank you.
All right, thank you, Stella. Appreciate that. Anybody else? Yep, Mr. Chapman.
Again, Madam Mayor, council members, city staff, Byron Chapman, 12 Bridges area. How much flexibility is the city looking at, and how urgent is the issue of what we're looking for to bring downtown? The question in my head basically is, if someone comes along and says, yeah, we're looking for this to bring this to the city, we don't have that now, we're pulling in more people with that. How firm are we when we're dealing with the various businesses and things that want to come in? I just want to say, how flexible are we, or are we pretty rigid in saying, no, we definitely don't want this downtown? I'm sure probably somebody's considered that, but that's something that maybe I would want to figure out.
Thank you.
So one of the things about being a planner is that most planners are uncomfortable making discretionary and value decisions based on their own perspective. In fact, that's not really what we pay them to do. So the answer to that question is, we're as restrictive as the code sort of dictates us to be. So quite literally, if you walk into City Hall and you have a building and you want to open a whatever business, they go to a chart, and the chart has a bunch of uses, and the uses say P for permitted, NP for not permitted, use permit, whatever the requirement is. And that's the process they go through. This, as it relates to the actual building side, not the use side, is really designed to provide them a streamlined process. Because in a funny way, developing downtown is more expensive and complex and difficult than it is to just build in an open field. You're dealing with constrained areas, older infrastructure, smaller lots typically. And so it is sort of ripe for a form-based code versus the traditional method we've been using, because everybody else goes through that process, no matter where you are in the city. Downtown is just a unique ecosystem unto itself. And so this kind of creates a little bit more of a level playing field where they can kind of count on approvals versus, as Efren described earlier, investing a ton of time, effort, and money and maybe getting a discretionary decision that's a no. Because, we'd prefer not to have to do that if we can avoid it. So hopefully that answers the question, but everybody that comes in pretty quickly will get some clarity about whether or not this is something that's going to get support or not support.
Great, thank you. Anybody else? Anybody online? No? Okay, we'll bring back to the council. Efren, thank you very much for that. We really appreciate it. Good job. All right, city manager reports.
No reports tonight. Happy birthday.
Oh, no, that's. Because you left your iPad in Long Beach, that's why. All right, council initiated business. Anybody have business tonight? No. Any committee reports?
Not except we've got a couple coming up, the airport, our Whitney and I are on, and then
Okay. Okay, great. Anybody? Councilmember Reedy and I had LISWA this last Friday. We are continuing to work on the process of possibly making a change to management, but we're not quite sure yet. And as soon as there's something to report, we'll report it. But, just looking at things very diligently, doing our best to make sure that we're as, fair to the ratepayers as possible and being good stewards of the money that we're spending. And there's, we get reports, there's repairs and they fix things. And it's like anything, some pumps or repairs takes longer to get because it just takes long to get stuff these days. But they're doing good work out there, handling it well. But so anything to add to that? No? Okay. Ben? Did you have something to report from last PCTPA? Because I don't think we've had a meeting since.
Air College and 193 Light
Oh,
that's
12
going to be
Bridges,
going, and
yeah.
also the 12 Bridges one. Matt, you know about that.
Okay, great, thanks.
Good
All right.
evening.
Go ahead. Oh, yeah. Go
Oh,
ahead.
yeah, he wanted me to.
Oh,
provide an
I'm sorry.
update.
I missed that. Sorry, I missed that. Sorry.
So the update is Placer County is continuing to work with the developer and their design engineer. There's a preliminary design for the improvements and a cost estimate. I believe it was somewhere around 9.5 million. So Sparta has today via in the TAC meeting, that's $7 million worth of earthwork to widen the road, to widen Sierra College Boulevard. That's a bulk of the cost
For
and
the
associated
stoplight?
paving for the signalized intersection.
Signal light?
So the good news
it's also a
is,
future improvement. It would come in there at some point,
Yeah.
right?
so
sorry,
the
Matt, go
good
ahead.
news, so they're looking at doing the entire project, the widening and signal. Sparta identified that they had about $1 million for the signal and I believe about $7 million for Sierra College widening. The county identified that the county and the developer are on the hook for everything north of the center line of 12 Bridges, and Sparta is on the hook for everything south of that center line. So they've asked their design engineer to split the cost estimate, but the county did express that they believe they have the funds. I believe they had a separate 12 Bridges widening fund, separate than Sparta, to complete the construction on the north end. So it sounds like there'll be some administrative cobbling of the funds and, design and environmental work, but that project, it looks like it's gonna be moving forward, but we're still in the preliminary stages, but everything's moving steadily ahead.
Okay, that's good to know. Right. Thank you for that.
I'd recommended just as part of that widening, instead of maybe as a temporary solution, do that widening, creating a center lane where they can mitigate the traffic one thing at a time, right? When you're coming out and turning left, just mitigate the traffic that's coming this, southbound, just go to the center lane, then mitigate going into the northbound.
Curious what they think about that idea, because when I'm taking that left turn from 12 Bridges onto Sierra College. I feel like well, this is probably more a public safety assessment and transportation. I'm not an expert, obviously, but as a driver, I think the biggest blind spot in that intersection is making a left when another car is making a right. Then you can't see the oncoming traffic, and I worry that that is
Just have to
not,
wait, yeah.
is still making it just as dangerous for us in that intersection. It seems like it would almost, I would worry, would that make it worse? Because then you're thinking you've got that turning area and someone's
Mhm.
taking a left as you're taking a left.
Mhm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think I see what you're saying, and is part of the widening also lengthening that right-hand turn as well. So
That's what's making it so you can't see the oncoming traffic that's coming down when you're trying to make a left. It's hard to describe.
coming south onto
South,
Sierra.
right, correct. Yeah, everybody's going south, then when the right hand going north is going, you can't see the oncoming traffic. And I feel like that's when I have the biggest blind spot. Because you just can't see, especially different times of the day or the sun's setting, and there's also those blind spots, and it's terrible. So anyway, I'm
All right, well,
glad that it's
hopefully
happening.
The process will continue to go quicker than longer, right? Yeah, Ben, go ahead.
Matt is showing me a early preliminary design. What the county and Sport is contemplating is significant widening. That's why the project costs so much. I mean, looking at the intersections, it's almost a 4 lanes at the intersection. And you know, what Councilmember Eklund has talked about, right? Which is the main reason why we need to signalize the intersection. In order for that to happen, there is significant earthwork. It's almost like they have to build a portion of 2 lanes just to make sure there's sufficient road width in order to, you know, do the widening. And you can't place signals, you know. My understanding, based on what I see right now, there isn't sufficient storage during the peak hours, which is why the cars are backing up along Sierra College Boulevard. And in order to do it right, they do have to widen the road. And looks like it's in the plans.
Okay, that's good
Well,
to
good.
know.
Appreciate that update very much.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. All right, for information items, I just have one. I'm mad at myself because I meant to bring it, but if you have a minute, you can go online and check it. We made the Jessup magazine this quarter, this semester, for the airport hangar groundbreaking. So they did a really great write-up, and there's a great picture of everybody doing the shoveling the dirt, and it was a really nice article. So go online and check it out if you want to. But I meant to bring it to show you, and I forgot it at home. And then also the Sacramento Business Journal did an article, and that was really great too. So yeah, we're famous. Anybody else have information?
Yeah, Lincoln High School was top 40% nationwide for
That was
their
great, yeah.
academic excellence and the way that they wish I'd written out a little bit more information about that, but it was in Gold Country Media, so you can read about that. Also, coming up on Thursday, we've got the blood drive from 9 to 2 o'clock at the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, 252 O Street. And you can actually go onto the website and book some times, but walk-ins are welcome because not everyone will be able to give that have appointments. So give blood. And then your Tour de Lincoln, Saturday, 23rd year.
What'd you say on Saturday?
Tour de Lincoln.
Oh, yes, yes. I didn't hear you.
Tour de
I'll be
Lincoln.
I'll be volunteering for that in the morning. Yeah. It's like, what? Go ahead. I have something, but go ahead. You got something? Please
Yeah,
go,
I
please go.
just remembered that I think it was, Placer County elections office asked that we had the ability to participate in the voter outreach at 12 Bridges High School. I was really happy I was able to make it at the last minute and talk to the government class about our role in local government, what we do in city council, and why it's important to vote, and the things that we decide that they could get, that they could participate in and collaborate, and just hopefully spark some interest. And it was very easy. I was really impressed with how intelligent our youth are and engaged in how much they're following, not just local, but national politics, and well-spoken. Yeah, it was a great event, and maybe we'll get some future city council members out of
I
out of
always
that.
enjoy doing that. It's a good time. I know Ben has
Mhm.
done it too. I actually had a chance to, Monday, I was invited to Roseville High School to speak to two groups of seniors for government and AP Gov classes, to talk about local control and how it all works with the county and all that. And that was really fun. So,
Yeah.
yeah. One thing that I forgot to mention to you guys before, Ben might know about this, and you might have gotten an email, but please write it down. So also, Maria Duncan from the LDS Church invited us on Thursday morning, October 23rd at 8 a.m. for the whole council to come to, I don't know the exact location, but unloading a food truck from the food bank.
Yeah.
For Salt Mine, yes, thank you.
And a few others, but it'll be at Kodiak Roofing.
Okay, great, thank you. I forgot where we were at. Anyway, she invited all of us to come and just participate in that. So mark your calendar if you're able to do that.
They're going to try to do a big media event about it, highlighting our involvement with providing for the nonprofits
Yeah.
and certain things like
I'm
that.
looking forward to it. It should be fun.
Awesome.
And then also just want to do another reminder for the State of the City on October 30th. So we hope everybody can make it out. We'd love to see you
Nice.
there at the
Sure,
Civic
we'll
Auditorium.
definitely be there.
Yeah. And I still need your pictures. Thank you very much.
Need all the
All right,
reminders.
anything else? Any other information items from anybody? No? Thank you, staff. Thank you, public, for coming. We are adjourned.
Nice.